Hello everyone, it's time to do another deck profile, this time on set 13, and probably my final deck profile for set 13, which is the Blue Deathster deck, or simply the updated Avantgarda Richter deck, because this is another one of those decks that got a really big upgrade due to basically having a new form. And I am very surprised that they decided to give Avantgarda the new form, and that's because the character Sam only played once in the whole entire anime. And for some reason they decided to give him a new form. Compared to Taizo, who didn't win once but played a sort of importance in Will Dress Season 1 that they didn't even bring back either. So out of all the Brandt Gate decks that they decided to choose, I'm surprised that they decided to choose Avantgarda. But I am glad that Taizo, the guy who plays Welstra, is going to get a new form as well from the next season. But still, I am just a little surprised they didn't choose Welstra instead of Avantgarda. But it does make sense in story perspective in a way as well, but oh well. At least that every single nation had its own new form in set 13, and I'm just surprised they decided to choose Avantgarda, but because they chose Avantgarda, I get a new form. But anyway, the deck functions still pretty fun. It's still basically a turn 4 deck. But now with the new Avantgarda Richter, it actually made the deck a little more aggressive, but still has the same weaknesses. In fact, even probably more further weaknesses. And it's due to the fact that being Brandt Gate, you're still playing set orders, aka 0 shields. And that does hinder the deck quite a bit, and it was an issue even previously before set 13 came out. And now it's become a little bit more of a bigger issue now because extra grade 3s. But luckily we do have another card to help support that. But other than that, I would have to say the deck still kind of functions the same, just now having the ability of a triple attack Vanguard, with basically a mech riding on top of a mech, which I also kind of find funny. So how the deck functions is that, first off, you're going to have one important starter, aka this one, Sora Period. He's the pilot. If you lose your pilot, aka through prison, or you soul blast him, you're gonna not be able to play the deck. He's the pilot, so without the pilot, the robot can't function, or the mech. The second thing that needs to be noted is similar to Welstra in a way, where you're basically going to be activating skills of your set orders. In this case, one strong point about this deck is that this deck will be gaining soul for free. And that's because I'll be explaining through Avantgarda himself, is that you're going to be activating skills of your set order by using Avantgarda himself. And that's the cool part I like about this deck. It's that you get free soul and you activate skills of set orders by using his skill. That's something I really like, and that's something I really like about Welstra too, but I think Welstra is actually a little more fun, even though I don't have a Welstra deck. But other than this aesthetic being cooler and being one of the first main robot decks that we had in D series, it's basically a bit iffy in the strength level, but it can play very aggressively but a little slow. But in that, I say the deck is pretty fun, and let's just get on with the deck. So of course, we start off with the most important card of the deck, Sora Period. He's the pilot, you have to run him. In which we go to the grade 1, Blue Verdict Vindinus, which has the skill wherein it's rolled upon by the grade 2 of Death Ray Stavine. You can search for your grade 1 strategy card, aka the set order of the deck, and of course shuffle your deck, and if you miss, you can move this to a rear guard. And it goes for the same thing for the grade 2, except it searches up the grade 2, which we go to the grade 3, which is Skyrender Avantgarda, which has the skill of, if you have Sora Period and Soul, that's the important part, the pilot, you can put a strategy card from your order zone into your soul. This will in turn activate the strategy card's ability, because that's how the strategy card activates. So it gets plus 5k power and this skill. And keep in mind, it gets this red skill, so you're not going to be able to, spoiler alert, play this skill later on because of Avantgarda Ritter's ability. So this skill is that at the end of this card attack hits, or during the turn you Persona Ride, you can counterblast 1, discard a card from your hand, stand the unit, drive -1 to end turn. So basically, it's similar to Overlord in a way where attack hit, you can restand, or during Persona Ride, you can just restand without the hit condition. And it's pretty simple that you just get 1 soul from your order zone, a draw on top of it, plus an extra 5k power, which is all free. This is just an extra added bonus, especially on your grade 3 turn where you can pressure down your opponent. And that's what makes Avantgarda a little bit powerful, is that you just basically get some free resources, even though they're going to be like 0 shield ways, while playing basic pressure on your opponent. So it's not too bad, it's pretty good, but just remember your strategy cards will actually determine your extra bonus skills. So that's the ride deck. To the main deck, first off, let's get to the Persona ride, because you have to Persona in this deck, so you make sure you have them. In which we go to his new form, Avantgarda Richter. So it has a skill of on hand. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, which in turns basically makes it go second or turn 4, you can reveal this card and bind the Blue Devster Avantgarda, the base form. And then, of course, you ride this card as stand. And then until the end turn, it gets all its original act abilities of your Vanguard until the rest of the turn. aka the skill of Avantgarda himself, where you can suck something to soul to basically get the restand ability. So this itself already gets 2 Vanguard attacks. But the extra pressure part is this next skill, where I'm just gonna say it's basically removing his armor. Because at the end of a discard attack, if you have Sword, Period, and Soul, you can discard 2 cards from your hand to superior ride the Blue Death Star Avantgarda from your bind zone as stand, and then plus 10k and drive -1. So basically what you do is use a skill to superior ride on top of Avantgarda, and then he gains the Avantgarda skill, where suck something in soul, and then suck something in soul, and then he gets the restand ability. After he performs the restand from base form Avantgarda, he basically can use his second skill to remove the armor, and then superior ride regular Avantgarda to basically just attack again. Keep in mind of the red tech skill that Avantgarda has to suck something from soul first, so unfortunately you cannot get the 4 Vanguard attack, but you can always suck something before you superior ride the Ritter to make sure that you can play 2 strategies in 1 turn. That's basically the key point, but just remember your timing and your limited of resources. So basically, Richter just basically gives you 3 Vanguard attacks in 1 turn, and yeah, it just makes it a little bit powerful because of that purpose. But other than that, I have to say the extra grade 3 and the consistency of it isn't exactly the best, especially when you need another piece on top of it to get everything functional, because I have witnessed with this deck with basically lack of strategy cards in the order zone. This whole deck revolves around them, because without that strategy card, you cannot play the restand. So keep that one in mind, and of course that's going to be 0 shield as well. So now on to the strategy card. So first off, we're going to just go from lowest grade to highest. This is Kill Shroud, where when you put it into soul, aka through Avantgarda's ability, choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire, and then your Vanguard gets those 5k power. The second one is just there, hopefully, to be able to get the extra consistency to draw it, so you can increase the amount of strategy cards as soon as you can. The Dusting gives you the ability to give your Vanguard plus 10k, and your opponent cannot intercept or play blitz orders for the rest of the turn, which is not too bad, especially for the attack hit part. And then finally, Death Wins, which has the ability where it's given to your Vanguard if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, where when it attacks, your whole front row gets those 5k power into the end turn. And because Avantgarda restands, it basically can give the 5k twice. Of course, it has to attack twice to basically get a total of 10k. And of course, you're going to lose the skill after losing the armor, but 2 5k buffs to the whole front row isn't too bad. And this is basically your finisher strategy. So that's it for the strategy cards. Unfortunately, we don't get an overload one, but we get some decent support like this one, which is a promo, but luckily it's a sneak peek promo, so it might not be too expensive, but still promo. But it's very necessary because if your Vanguard is Avantgarda and it attacks, this card gets with 5k. Since Avantgarda is going to attack twice, most of the time it's going to get plus a total of 10k, and very key because being Brandt Gate, you're going to be sacrificing booster for attackers. So that is something to keep in mind. But the second skill is that on place, if you play the strategy card this turn, you can Soul Blast 1, search your deck or drop zone for 1 strategy card that with a different name that you did not play this turn and add it to your hand. This will basically increase your consistency and be your big attacker. That's what you run for. And then next we run the Freiheit, which you're not going to be really focused on the second skill because that's for Welstra. It's the first skill you're going to focus on, where when placed on rearguard, if you have a set order, you can counter blast 1, discard a card from your hand, search your deck for 1 card with the same card name as your Vanguard or 1 product that you're going to ignore that part and add it to your hand. And of course, if your Vanguard is Welstra, you can operate the product, but you're not doing Welstra. You're doing this to search a card with the same card name as your Vanguard. Consistency for persona writing, basically. But in that, this is just increased consistency. And finally, the last spot, you can run whatever you want, especially when you go to 50 cards Enlightenment Age Dragon. This is so you can increase your recycling, but I was thinking of putting the discard cycle card instead for extra draw power because that does help, and activating 2 set orders does help as well. But at the same time, the recycling is probably more important because I've been witnessing this problem a lot, and Soul is free. And then to the grade 1 lineup. Hanada Hallway, which on place, if your Vanguard is blue Deathster, you can counterblast 1 to draw a card. Very nice. But the second skill is that when this card boosts, if you put a strategy card into your soul this turn, aka through Avantgarda, at the end of the battle, this card gets plus 2k, and if it's at the center column, countercharge 1, so main countercharger that you can technically do more than once per turn, but you're not going to restand this booster, are you? And 2, being a 10k booster just really helps out. And counterblast is not really much of a problem, so the extra draw does really help. That's why you run this, but not exactly as a 4 of, because you don't really have the space for it until the 50 card limit comes. And then next, the new card, Asagi, which I'm just gonna go over the second skill first, where if you put a strategy card to your soul plus 5k, which could be a 13k booster or attacker, which is nice. But the first skill is that when placed on rearguard, if your Vanguard is blue Deathster, you can counterblast 1 to choose a greater or greater Avantgarda from your drop zone and put it back to your hand, which is gonna be very helpful because you're gonna have a lot of cards that you want to really discard, and too many pieces can also be a problem, so helping you recycle is just nice, especially when it's Avantgarda. And then finally, 4 PGs because PGs. And of course, trigger lineup, OT, A crits, 3 draws because important for hand, and finally 4 heals, 2 being counter heals. So that's it for this deck profile of my Avantgarda Richter deck, or Blue Deathster deck for set 13. What do you guys think of it? And what other cards would you recommend? And especially the 50 card limit. I have to say this deck is just fun. I do like the triple attack aspect of now with Avantgarda Richter. Pretty interesting concept that we have a mech riding on top of a mech, and especially Eminence of the Shadow. That character looks kind of cool. But jokes aside, it's just a fun deck. Still has the problem of defensive value and even more defensive value problems now because of Richter being a new form, and a little bit surprising still that Sam himself got the new grade 3 for the Brandt Gate representation of set 13 evolutions. Surprise is not Taizo. I think Taizo would probably be better, but Sam would have made sense too, but just surprising that he did not play a role in Will Dress Season 3, and he only fought once. But anyway, at least he got a new form, I guess. But on that, that's it for this. See you all next time.